Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, Blake Snell finally has a deal, and for an interesting amount of years and dollar amount. So, the question we'll start off with: should the Phillies have done it? Should they have been the team to sign Blake Snell? There is an argument to be made. Also, the Braves have named their opening day starter. I'll tell you why Philadelphia Phillies fans should be excited about their decision. And also, we're 9 days till that matchup. Who's the best number 9 in Phillies history? We'll let you know in our opening day countdown. A lot of stuff on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing if you're consuming this in podcast form. If you're watching on YouTube and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It's a great way to help us out. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, and this is all in lowercase, LockedOnMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. I'll tell you who doesn't need that deposit match. It's Blake Snell, because, man, is that dude getting paid, at least for the next 2 seasons. So let's talk first about the terms of the deal. If you're unaware, Blake Snell signed late last night to a 2-year deal worth $62 million overall with the San Francisco Giants. He has a opt-out clause after this year, so there's a chance it could be if he outplays the contract, he could be in a situation where he could opt out of $32 million a year, or $31 million a year, which that would be an insane year. But he's the reigning NL Cy Young, so it makes sense that he still believes in himself to get more than that. But let's compare. You can't compare the overall size of the contract because it's short lengthwise, year-wise. When you see $62 million and you go, well, Bryce Harper is making $330 million, you got to remember that's a majorly long deal. It's paid out over a long time frame. The great way to compare baseball contracts and any contracts is yearly. What are they making per year? So Blake Snell, $31 million per year. Let's look at the Phillies that are making in that neighborhood this year, because if Blake Snell had signed that deal with the Phillies, he would have been the highest paid player on the team. Trey Turner, and we're going by the luxury tax salary here. Trey Turner is getting paid a little over $27 million this year. Bryce Harper, a little over $25 million. Aaron Nola with that new deal, $24.5 million. Zach Wheeler, still waiting for his extension to kick in, $23.5 million. JT Realmuto right around 23. Nick Castellanos, $20 million even. Kyle Schwarber a shade under $20 million. You look at some of these guys and you say, okay, is Blake Snell a more valuable player than Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber? And the answer, with the NL Cy Young under his belt, his second Cy Young award in his career, could very well be yes. Here's where it gets interesting. If the Philadelphia Phillies had signed Blake Snell, it would have put them over a luxury tax threshold where they could no longer select a first-round selection, or they'd be moved back in the first round. So their selection would change in the draft. You might say, well, the draft is a crapshoot, and you'd be right. But part of what the Phillies are really going to have to do after giving Zach Wheeler an extension, after paying Aaron Nola, after having all of this money paid out over long-term years, they're going to have to find a way to build through the draft and through the farm system and through trades with minor league players. And backing up in the draft is not ideal for them. So that's going to factor in. They also don't want to pay the higher tax number through the luxury tax and that penalty. So that's part of the consideration. But I think the Philadelphia Phillies have already told you, with the Zach Wheeler extension and bringing Aaron Nola back, obviously they're in a championship contention window. But it's going to get real tricky in about a year to maintain these guys. We already talked about the free agents that they have after this year. The only free agent after this season that the Philadelphia Phillies have that does not have a club option, because remember, Whit Merrifield has a club option, and I believe Sir Anthony Dominguez does as well, and those are two of the three. Matt Strahm is the only true free agent that's going to exist on this team at the end of this year. So what does that mean? Okay, yeah, you might have to pay the guy a lot, but you don't have to add a lot to your roster. A 2-year deal would seem to fit right in the time frame that the Philadelphia Phillies are looking to be super competitive, and you want to try and rush your way to a World Series before the Dodgers get Shohei Ohtani back on the mound, which should be next season. They become a totally different animal when that happens. And the deeper Yoshinobu Yamamoto gets into his major league career, the better he's probably going to become. I know I'm projecting out a little bit, but I say that to say this. Blake Snell is an insanely talented pitcher. He's got up and down years, but ultimately the stuff is undeniable. And you would have gone into the highest luxury tax threshold, but I think the Philadelphia Phillies could have afforded this. And I think when I look at it as 2 years, maybe even only 1 year of Blake Snell that you have to pay for, it's a short enough deal and fits in your window that I think it would have been worth it to take a shot on. One of the other main criticisms of Blake Snell is that he doesn't throw enough innings. He doesn't go deep enough into games. And sometimes that's true. But last year, Aaron Nola only got one more out per game than Blake Snell. It wasn't a major difference between those two guys. Last year was a really good year for Blake Snell. There's a question as to whether or not he repeats it. And I look at this and I say, would I have done the Blake Snell deal if I was the Philadelphia Phillies? The tough thing is separating myself from my fandom, because if you had a rotation, we talked about the bullpen issues, right? Not so much the bullpen is issues, but there's a couple open spots in the bullpen still that you're trying to lock down who goes there. If you sign Blake Snell, he becomes your number 2 or number 3 or whatever. He's one of your top 3 pitchers with Wheeler and Nola. And then Ranger Suarez slots into the 4th spot in the rotation. Taijuan Walker goes to the 5th spot. You have a guy that won 15 games last year as your 5th starting pitcher. Christopher Sanchez goes to the bullpen as another lefty arm in the pen, and you'll put him there. Or maybe he goes to AAA, but then you get more starter depth. Either way, you have a new weapon in Christopher Sanchez to use a different way. And it's unfair to the kid because he had a really good year last year, and I think that's part of the consideration of why the Phillies didn't do it. But I just, how great would that rotation be? That's the fan perspective of me. The president of baseball operations, the GM, the owner part of me says the Phillies have always said they're comfortable with where they're at. And I've never for a second believed they were signing Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. I've told you that multiple times. And here's why. Because the Phillies want to be somewhat flexible over the next couple of years. Signing Blake Snell would not allow them to do that. And they want to be competitive, but with a chance to still do stuff at the trade deadline. Blake Snell would put you in a really tough spot to acquire salary at the trade deadline. So that makes that tough as well. Ultimately, the Phillies, basically, here's what they said by not signing Blake Snell. We think you're a great pitcher. We think there could be other opportunities that fit our needs better at a later date. And that's why they held off, because they think that the bell of the ball when it comes to a player that you could acquire to make the Phillies better has not yet arrived. Could be someone who comes available at the trade deadline this year. Could be someone next offseason. Could be someone, I don't know, middle of the season, not even near the trade deadline. A team falls out of contention. The Phillies do something splashy. That's probably not likely, but you understand what I'm saying. And that's why the Phillies chose not to do it. And frankly, as much as the fan in me, the individual, Connor Thomas, says, yes, I want Blake Snell on this baseball team, and for 2 years, $62 million, I would have done it. I understand why the Phillies did not do it. And I think they're still plenty good enough to compete in Major League Baseball. Coming up next, we're going to get into a conversation about the Braves naming their opening day starter. Yes, the Braves have chosen the opponent for Zach Wheeler. So who's it going to be to take the mound at Citizens Bank Park on March 28th. You know, it's going to be one of their top guys. Well, we'll tell you who it is coming up next, and also why Philadelphia Phillies fans should be absolutely ecstatic that this was the selection. Get ready, folks. Get ready to be loud. We'll talk about it as we continue Locked On Phillies. Let me tell you about Prize Picks first, though. Listen, you might have just heard my stomach rumbling there. It's because I'm hungry for wins, and I got to check out Prize Picks because they're the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. So if you're hungry for wins like I am, you can go ahead and check out Prize Picks. You don't battle thousands of other players. You don't play pros. You don't play gambling sharks. No, you pick just more or less on a bunch of stats, 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. Football season's over, right? But the tournament's coming. You got playoffs basketball coming at the pro level. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. The fight for playoff home court is real. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. You can get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Check out the NBA. The Sixers might be getting a certain big man back soon, but until they do, Tyrese Maxey's over looked very good on all of these numbers, and probably the best player on the team they're playing against any given night, which against the Phoenix Suns, KD, Devin Booker. Those will be guys to look at in tomorrow night's game when the Sixers travel to Phoenix. A lot of great stuff with Prize Picks. I'd look at the over on those guys. And it's absolutely awesome to go ahead and check this out. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I can't say that it's that easy thing for Prize Picks without thinking about this old commercial that used to go on. I mean, it was some football commercial where they had like a wide receiver going, "It's just that easy." And I thought it was hilarious. Anyway, that's a deep cut that nobody even understands the reference. Something that people will understand the reference is when you tell Philadelphia Phillies fans that a certain pitcher doesn't want it to be loud at Citizens Bank Park. You know exactly what pitcher I'm talking about. You know exactly what interview that's from. You know exactly who's going to be taking the mound for the Atlanta Braves on opening day. That's right. The Atlanta Braves have announced that Spencer Strider is going to be their opening day starter in Philadelphia on March 28th, and y'all should be ecstatic. I can't wait to be in that building. The last time Spencer Strider was here, obviously, was in the 2023 NLDS. And we know how that went for Strider. We know how that went for the Braves. We know how that went for the Phillies. It ended well for the Philadelphia Phillies. And Nick Castellanos sent one deep into the night with a bat flip for the ages. Now, part of me wants to tell you guys to be excited, and you should be. And it should be loud, and it's going to be a raucous environment, just like it was the last time Strider stepped on the mound, and just like it will be every single time he comes to Philadelphia for the rest of his career. He's created even a bigger monster out of the monster that is the Philadelphia Phillies fan base, you guys. So that's something to absolutely look forward is to be part of that environment. If you're going to be going to the bank on opening day, or if you're watching, make sure your TV volume's turned up because the crowd is going to be something special. But let's look at this realistically. Spencer Strider was already a monster pitcher. He's so darn good. He hasn't been great against the Phillies, obviously, especially in the postseason, but that doesn't make him not a good pitcher. And just like people felt last year when the Braves matched up with the Phillies again, that eventually something has to change. This team is too talented to just lose to the Phillies every year. You're also looking at a situation where Spencer Strider seems too talented to just lose to the Phillies consistently. He's developed a new pitch. He's throwing a curveball this year, which looks pretty darn nasty from what he's done in spring training. He's been dominant in spring training, and he's already in midseason form. So he's coming out of the gates hot, but he's going to have to contend with a really good Phillies lineup. He's going to have to face off against Zach Wheeler, who is a really good pitcher. This opening day is shaping up to be a very, very special one. I've already had people asking me, do you think the Braves playing the Phillies on opening day gives this Phillies team a jump start? And I don't think it really jumpstarts the whole season, but I think it's a very exciting first series. I don't know that that carries over when they go to their second series of the year, but the opening game is becoming more and more interesting when you look at the storylines. Strider Wheeler is one of the better opening day matchups in all of baseball. You're really probably not going to see a better pitching matchup on March 28th than Spencer Strider facing off against Zach Wheeler. Then you add on the part that the last time that these two pitchers faced the opposing teams was in the NLDS, and you have that playoff implication. Then you add on that the season before that, they pitched against each other's teams in the NLDS. So there's a lot of blood between the Phillies and the Braves and the postseasons of the past. We know this. But what you got to remember, too, is that Spencer Strider is now a major villain in Philadelphia sports because the comments last year saying that fans should not be allowed in the stadium. He wants to go back to like the COVID year where fans shouldn't be there, keep the fans out of the stadium. And I think he said it jokingly, but it doesn't matter, buddy. You say it jokingly or you say it straight-faced, Philadelphia is going to make it loud for you. So the surroundings of this game, like if it was just Phillies Braves, it would still be great. Adding in Strider, adding in Wheeler on the new extension, adding in the fact that the fans hate Spencer Strider, adding in the fact that they're going to want to make it loud, adding in the history with the postseason, like it is just going to be an opening day for the ages. I cannot wait to see what goes on at Citizens Bank Park, and that's why fans should be ultimately excited. Not because it's a guarantee the Phillies are going to win. Strider's unbelievable. But it's a guarantee that you're going to witness something special at Citizens Bank Park. And it's rare that the opening game for some teams is, like opening day is always an event, right? You're always going to be interested in opening day. You're always going to want to see how your team looks. That old hope springs eternal, that whole kind of saying about opening day where every team believes they have a chance. That's cool for teams out in, I don't know, Colorado. Or a team in, well, the Twins are going to be good. I was going to make fun of Minnesota. But bottom line is the Phillies actually have a chance, as do the Braves, obviously. A huge divisional matchup on opening day. I mean, I could go through the storylines for hours as to why this is going to be a special opportunity to watch baseball. And whether the Phillies win or lose on March 28th, you're going to see an absolute gem of a game with storylines galore, and I'm glad that Spencer Strider is the guy who gets the start. The other thing to keep in mind, folks, maybe some nerves for Strider. It's his first opening day start of his major league career. Believe it or not, he's been a good pitcher for what feels like 3 or 4 years now, but opening day start number one for Spencer Strider. The nerves will be kicked in. So will the nerves of pitching at Citizens Bank Park once again, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. So gear up, bring your megaphones, make noise, bring the rally towels, do whatever you got to do if you're going down there to Citizens Bank Park on March 28th to make Spencer Strider uncomfortable so that the Phillies come out with an opening day win. It's going to be loud. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait for 9 days from now. And speaking of 9 days from now, that means our opening day countdown is at number 9. So who is the best number 9 in Philadelphia Phillies history? Well, I'll give you my pick coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. Let me tell you about Fire TV, okay? It's your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. It might be opening weekend for baseball coming up, or the college basketball tournament. Either way, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And they recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. Plus, they got everything else too. News, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. I've also got to tell you about FanDuel. These are my guys. And this is the time of year that you want to be in with FanDuel because you can say goodbye to busted brackets. FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. You think Connecticut's going to repeat? You think Houston's got a team that can make a run all the way to the top? Go ahead and throw your money down with FanDuel, and you could be winning big. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Let's talk about our opening day countdown. I'm so excited. We're into single digits, 9 days until the Philadelphia Phillies take the field for the first time in the actual regular season. So, who's the best Philly to ever wear number 9? And we've talked about as we get lower, you get more opportunities for great players because better players like the lower numbers more often. It should be fair. There's not a lot of great number 87s running around the game of baseball. But the first one is a doozy, the most recent. Travis Jankowski wore this number back in 2021, just won the World Series with the Texas Rangers this past year. Smaller part of the team, obviously, but is Travis Jankowski the best number 9 in Phillies history? Of course not. Maybe it's Dominic Brown. For a couple months, it might have been. 2010 to 2015, he wore the number 9. Michael Bourne, some great memes came out of his time. Well, it carried over from his time because I guess there weren't that many memes back in 2006. But Michael Bourne's a name you'll remember. Tadahito Iguchi wore this number for the 2008 team. Von Hayes wore it from 1983 to 1991. And that's a pick that a lot of people probably think I should make, is that Von Hayes would be the selection for number 9. But to me, the best number 9 in Philadelphia Phillies history is Manny Trio. Like, you look at what he's done in his career and what he did here with the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's a guy that I think deserves the honor. I really do. I mean, he did it all for the Philadelphia Phillies in his time here in Philadelphia and wore the number from 1979 to 1982. So 3 years as the number 9 for the Philadelphia Phillies. He's a 4-time All-Star in his career. 2-time World Series winner, 3-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time Silver Slugger, the NLCS MVP before. And of course, that 1980s team doesn't win the World Series without Manny Trio being a part of it. So when you bring a World Series to the city, you automatically kind of qualify as the best player to wear that number, unless someone else really is a Hall of Famer or has won a World Series themselves. And considering the Phillies only have 2, and Tadahito Iguchi was not exactly the biggest part of that 2008 team. In fact, he wasn't really even left by the time they went to the World Series. Like, you're looking at a situation where it's got to be Manny Trio to me. That's my pick. I know people are going to debate it in the comments because you guys have been debating this a lot and all my selections. I appreciate that. Yeah, keep tuning in. Let me know. You might have noticed, by the way, we did not do Mailbag Tuesday today because we had the Blake Snell news came out of nowhere. There's a lot of stuff just breaking recently. So we're going to have Mailbag Wednesday. Okay, we're pushing it back tomorrow. I'll put a tweet out for you to respond to. You can respond to this YouTube video with questions you want me to answer tomorrow. We're going to get into that. We also have a very interesting set of power rankings from the official MLB social media accounts that we're going to discuss tomorrow. And if the Phillies deserve to be where they're at. Are they being undervalued, overvalued? Well, we'll get into where they stand. So we'll jump into that on tomorrow's episode. And we still got to give you some final opening day roster predictions. A lot of busy work that you guys are going to love. It's not actually busy work. It's fun work to get you ready for opening day. So you know everything you need to know ahead of the Phillies matchup with the Braves. Strider versus Wheeler, a heavyweight matchup. I can't wait for us to draw another day closer, but that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. So thank you so much for checking us out. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. It really helps us out here. That's all for today's episode, like I said. So I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.